I can still hear that knock. 3 sharp raps on my office door, clipped and impatient, like the sound of someone tapping a gavel. My phone lit up at the same time, a new email notification. Subject line, immediate meeting, HR and management, conference room 3A. My pulse jumped. That wasn't where you went for a casual catch-up or a birthday cake. 3A was where reputations went to die. I grabbed my notebook, out of habit more than anything, and walked down the corridor. The office was buzzing the way only Manhattan offices do on a Monday morning. Phones ringing, heels clicking on tile, the low hum of printers spitting out documents people would forget by lunchtime. I noticed heads lifting as I passed. People glanced, then looked away too quickly, as if they knew something I didn't. Do you know that feeling? That weight in the air when everyone seems to know what's coming except you? I reached the glass door of 3A. The blinds were drawn shut, which only made the room feel more like a courtroom. I pushed it open, and there they were. Linda, my manager, sitting at the head of the table, arms crossed, nails painted a shade of red that looked more like warning signs than style. Next to her, an HR rep I barely knew, clutching a manila folder thick enough to hold a murder case. The air conditioning hummed too loud, or maybe it was just the blood pounding in my ears. "Rachel," Linda said, motioning to the chair across from her, "please, sit." Her voice was calm, too calm, the kind of calm that comes from rehearsing bad news. I sat down, notebook in front of me. The HR rep smiled politely, like a dentist about to drill without anesthesia. "Rachel," Linda began, sliding a paper across the table. "We've reviewed your performance this quarter." I almost smiled. Reviewed my performance? That would take 5 seconds. $22 million in new business, that was the number. One client alone had signed a contract that made our entire quarter look golden. My name was on every line of that deal. My phone still had text messages from the client. "Couldn't have done this without you." But Linda's lips didn't curl upward. Her expression didn't match the reality I lived last week. "While your client numbers are strong," she said, pausing as if those words burned her tongue, "there are concerns about perception. Concerns about cultural fit. You've been absent from several networking galas, the holiday charity dinner, and more than one team-building event." I blinked. I thought I'd misheard. "Perception?" I asked. My voice cracked slightly, half disbelief, half anger. Linda leaned back as if she'd scored a point. "Yes. In environments like ours, it's not just about results. It's about how you're seen, how you integrate. Right now, you're not seen as part of the culture, and because of that, the board feels a reduction in your bonus is appropriate. Just like that. No thank you. No congratulations. No acknowledgement of $22 million that wouldn't exist without me. Just perception. You ever have someone look you dead in the eye and tell you your results don't matter? That the late nights, the calls, the contracts, the numbers, all of it isn't enough because you didn't show up for wine tastings and forced karaoke? That's what it felt like. I wanted to slam my hands on the table, to shout, "I kept this firm alive while half the office was out sipping champagne." I wanted to throw every number, every spreadsheet, every signed contract in their faces, but I didn't. Instead, I stared at the paper she slid toward me. Black ink spelling out my punishment, bonus adjustment due to culture misalignment. The words looked official, sterile, like they'd been copied from a corporate handbook. But they stung more than any insult Linda could have invented. HR cleared her throat. "Rachel, this isn't about your abilities. It's about optics. These things matter at the executive level, optics. Another word for smoke and mirrors." I took a slow breath. My chest ached from holding it all in. I looked from Linda to the HR rep and back, and I realized something important. Arguing here wouldn't save me. They'd already decided my bonus was gone. The decision was inked. If I shouted, I'd just give them the picture they wanted. A difficult employee, not a team player. So I stayed silent. I let Linda talk, her tone dripping with fake sympathy. I let the HR rep shuffle papers like this was all standard procedure. And while they spoke, I memorized every word, every pause, every condescending glance. Because silence is underestimated. Silence lets people reveal themselves. I nodded once, slid the paper back toward them, and said, "I understand." Linda's smile flickered for half a second, as if she wasn't expecting compliance. Then she regained her composure. "Good. We're glad we could clear this up." Clear this up? Nothing was clear. Nothing was fair. I walked out of that room with my bonus slashed and my pride bruised, but I carried something more powerful than outrage. I carried resolve. And I'll ask you this. Have you ever been told you weren't enough? Even when your results proved otherwise? Because that was the moment I promised myself. I wouldn't yell. I wouldn't beg. I would let the truth, my results, and the clients who trusted me speak louder than any perception Linda could twist. That day, I walked back through the corridor, people still glancing, still whispering, but this time, I didn't look down. I didn't feel shame. I felt a fire I hadn't felt in years, and I knew this wasn't the end of the story. It was only the beginning. When I walked out of that glass room, I didn't slam the door. I didn't march back to my desk and start ranting. I didn't even call a friend to vent. I just walked, slow, steady, every step heavy but deliberate. My heels clicked on the marble floor like a metronome, marking the rhythm of a decision I'd already made. Stay quiet, stay sharp, and start collecting. You ever realize mid-crisis that your words won't save you, but your receipts might? That's where I was. I sat at my desk, the hum of the office wrapping around me. People typing, phones ringing, someone laughing a little too loud 2 rows away. But inside my bubble, it was just me and my inbox. I opened every thread from Linda, every update I'd sent, every client confirmation. I created a folder called Perception versus Reality. That name wasn't for anyone else. That was for me. A reminder of what this fight was really about. One by one, I dragged emails in, contracts I negotiated, praise from clients, screenshots of messages. "Rachel, you saved us here. We only trust you with this deal." Every piece of evidence went in, not because I was planning some dramatic courtroom showdown, but because I knew the truth needed a safe place to live. And as I built that folder, I remembered something. A flashback hit me like a cold splash of water last winter, that Friday night when the system crashed during a snowstorm. IT had gone home, Linda was unreachable, and the client was panicking. Phones ringing, emails piling, the kind of chaos that makes you wonder if the whole contract is about to fall apart. I stayed, alone in the office. Coffee cold, fingers numb from typing. I called in favors, patched systems, pulled strings I didn't even know I had. By midnight, the client's system was back online. By morning, they sent an email. "Rachel saved us." Funny, isn't it? Nobody at the gala saw that. Nobody clapped. No spotlight, no applause, just me, an empty office, and a problem solved. So tell me, what weighs more? A glittery name tag at a charity dinner, or the trust of a client whose business you saved at midnight? I leaned back in my chair, staring at the folder filling up on my desktop. Each email was a brick in a wall I was building, quietly, carefully. Linda could spin her stories about culture fit, but I had hard evidence that couldn't be spun. Days passed, and I played the part. I showed up on time, answered every call, delivered every report. I didn't argue, didn't pout, didn't show a crack. Outwardly, I was calm. Inwardly, I was sharpening a blade. Because silence, when chosen, isn't weakness. It's patience. And here's what I want you to think about. Have you ever let someone underestimate you on purpose, just so they wouldn't see you coming later? That's exactly what I was doing. So while Linda smiled her fake smile in staff meetings, talking about team spirit, I kept building my file. Every compliment from a client, every number that showed growth, every win she tried to claim credit for but couldn't because the receipts told the story. And I knew, when the moment came, when the stakes rose higher than a missing bonus, that folder would speak louder than I ever could. Silence wasn't surrender, it was strategy. Silence didn't go unnoticed, mine especially. I thought maybe if I kept my head down, let the work speak, Linda would get bored and move on. But no, she noticed, and she hated it. The first shot came on a Tuesday morning. Calendar invite. Mandatory networking gala. Attendance required, required. Not suggested, not encouraged, required. The invite didn't even include details about the actual purpose of the event. Just cocktails, speeches, and a jazz band nobody asked for. I clicked accept, but my stomach churned. Not because I was shy, not because I couldn't handle small talk, but because I knew exactly what it meant. It wasn't about clients. It wasn't about deals, it was about optics. The same game Linda accused me of not playing. Have you ever been forced to show up somewhere you knew was pointless, just to keep appearances? That night, the ballroom glowed with chandeliers, polished silver trays floating by with champagne flutes. People laughed too loudly at bad jokes. I stood near the edge of the crowd, glass in hand, watching executives shake hands like actors repeating lines from a tired script. And then Linda made her move. She swept in, sequined dress catching the light, smile stretched wide for everyone to see. She hooked her arm through mine like we were best friends. "Rachel, so glad you could make it," she said, voice just loud enough for the VP nearby to hear. The way she held me there, parading me like a trophy she owned, it made my skin crawl. I smiled, but it felt like glass cracking. Later, she leaned close, voice low but sharp. "See? This isn't so hard. If you'd done this before, maybe your bonus would still be intact." I froze. The music swelled behind us, saxophones blaring, people laughing, glasses clinking, and all I could think was, she doesn't want me to succeed. She wants me to perform. The pressure didn't stop at one gala. Suddenly, my calendar filled with mandatory events, wine tastings, charity luncheons, rooftop mixers. None of them connected to my clients. Every one of them a test, and the cruel part? If I skipped, she'd call it proof that I wasn't a team player. If I went, she'd still whisper, "Not enough." So what do you do when showing up still means losing? I played along, but inside I burned. At each event, I kept mental notes. Who was there, who wasn't, what was said. Because I knew something Linda didn't. Optics fade, results last. Still, the constant push weighed on me. Imagine working 12-hour days, carrying million-dollar accounts, only to be told your worth depends on how many hors d'oeuvres you pretend to enjoy at a cocktail party. And you wonder why people crack under corporate pressure? One night, standing by a fake marble column while Linda laughed with a director, I looked around the room. The faces blurred. The laughter sounded hollow. And in that moment I realized she was trying to exhaust me, break me, drown me in noise so I couldn't focus on what I did best. But I didn't break. I endured. I smiled when I had to. I showed up when I couldn't afford not to. And quietly, I kept adding to my folder of truth, emails, numbers, wins. Because no chandelier, no champagne flute, no gala photo could erase what my clients knew. Results speak louder. So let me ask you, have you ever been stuck in a room full of people pretending, while knowing deep down the only thing that matters is what you've already done? That was me, and Linda thought she was winning. But she didn't know she was pushing me closer to the moment when her whole performance would collapse. The email came in quietly, like any other. A small ping on my laptop. But I swear to you, the air around me shifted the second I read the subject line. Future of the partnership. Now, if you've ever worked in corporate, you know, emails with titles like that are loaded. They don't just inform, they decide. My pulse jumped. My hand hovered over the mouse for a second too long, afraid that maybe, once I opened it, I'd see something I didn't want to see. But I clicked. And there it was. Clear, direct. No fluff, no sugarcoating. We value Rachel's leadership and responsiveness. Going forward, all communications and decisions will be directed through her. We trust her judgment. Please ensure she is the primary point of contact. That's it. Just like that. My name in bold. My role spelled out in front of everyone, Linda, the VP, and even the CFO CCCD. Do you realize what that means? After months of being paraded through pointless events, after being told I wasn't engaged enough, here was the truth, stamped and sealed by the only people that actually mattered. The client. I read it once, twice, a third time. The words burned brighter with each read. I could almost feel my body release a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. And then, silence. The office was never truly quiet. Printers hummed, phones rang, keyboards clicked. But in that moment, everything faded. All I could hear was my own heartbeat, loud in my ears. Across the room, Linda sat at her desk. Her monitor reflected off her glasses, and I watched her eyes dart side to side, rereading the email just like I had. Only her face didn't soften, her lips tightened, her shoulders rose, stiff. Her hand gripped the mouse so hard her knuckles turned white. She didn't look up at me, not once, but I felt her glare even without her eyes meeting mine, and me? I stayed still. My hands shook a little on the keyboard, but I forced them flat on the desk. I didn't smirk, I didn't gloat, I didn't need to. Because tell me, what's louder than a client saying, this person or no deal? At that moment, every gala, every rooftop mixer, every stage smile Linda had forced me into, it all crumbled. None of it mattered. Not when the client planted their flag with me. Have you ever felt invisible, only to suddenly be seen in the brightest light possible? That was me, right then, and it sent me spiraling back. Flashback to months earlier. It was a Friday night. The office was nearly empty. A storm pounded outside, wind rattling the windows. I sat alone at my desk, the glow of my screen painting my face pale blue. Our client's system had gone down. Some integration glitch threatening millions in transactions. Phones were ringing off the hook, people panicked. I stayed. I dug into the problem, line by line, until my eyes burned. At one point, I remember staring at my reflection in the black window, whispering, "Don't you dare fail now." I called their tech lead, patched into the system, walked them through a fix step by step. By midnight, we were back online. By dawn, their CEO sent a 2-word message. Thank you. No cameras, no cocktails, no applause. Just a quiet rescue in the middle of the night. And now, months later, here was the reward. Proof that clients don't forget who saves them when the storm hits. Back in the present, I closed the email and leaned back slightly, letting the chair creak beneath me. Around me, whispers started. A coworker 2 rows over nudged another, eyes flicking to me. Someone else murmured, "Wow, they really just cut Linda out." I kept my expression neutral, but inside, I was shaking with adrenaline. Linda, though, she stood. She smoothed her blazer, grabbed a folder she didn't need, and walked briskly toward the break room. Her heels clicked sharp against the tile, each step a reminder of her anger. And I sat there thinking, She's losing her grip. Here's the thing. In corporate life, so much is smoke and mirrors. People climb ladders on charm, politics, perception. But every so often, results punch through. This was that punch. I opened my notebook and jotted down the date, the subject line, even pasted the email into my growing folder of evidence. Not because I doubted it. No, this was undeniable, but because documentation had become my shield. If anyone tried to twist the story, I'd have the truth ready. And then a thought hit me. What if this wasn't just about me surviving Linda? What if it was about proving something bigger? That no matter how loud the politics get, real work still counts. I let that thought sit, heavy but steady. So let me turn to you. If you were the client, sitting across the table, deciding who to trust with $20 million, would you pick the one laughing at a gala, or the one who shows up when everything's on fire? Clients had made their choice, and for the first time, I felt the tide turning hope. That's what it felt like. A fragile hope, yes, but bright. The war wasn't over. Linda wouldn't go quietly. I knew that. But in that moment, with one email, I had something stronger than any gala could give. Trust. And in business, trust is everything. The phone on my desk rang. A sharp, abrupt ring that cut through the steady hum of keyboards and the low buzz of chatter around me. For a second, I froze. Calls like this don't come through the general line. Not from them. I picked it up, my hand clammy against the receiver. A familiar voice greeted me. The lead executive from our $20 million client, calm, polished. But there was an edge there, the kind you hear when someone's patience has worn thin. "Rachel," he said, "we're escalating." That word, escalating, it echoed in my head. My throat tightened. He didn't waste time. "We're done with the back and forth. I'm calling your CEO directly. Either you're the point of contact or we walk away." I swear the office spun for a moment. My chair, the walls, the fluorescent lights, they all blurred. Because in one sentence, everything shifted. All the politics, all the games Linda had been playing suddenly looked fragile, like glass cracking under pressure. I managed to whisper back, "I understand." My voice cracked, but he didn't care. He was already moving to the next battlefield, the top floor. And here's the thing. In corporate, you don't call the CEO lightly. It's a nuclear option. You don't skip the chain of command unless you've decided the chain is broken, and they had. I hung up and sat there, hands pressed flat against the desk. My pulse hammered in my ears. Across from me, Linda leaned back in her chair, pretending not to watch. But I caught her glancing, the corner of her eyes sharp as glass. She must have sensed something. She always did. And then it hit. The sound of my email notification. I looked. It was the calendar alert. Emergency call, CEO plus client. Time. Now I wasn't invited. Not directly. But you can imagine, every nerve in my body buzzed with the knowledge that my name was about to be spoken in a room I couldn't see. And in that moment, everything slowed. You ever have that? When you know your future is being decided in real time, but you're stuck outside the door? I leaned back, staring at the ceiling, and I remembered flashback. That stormy night, saving their system, line by line. That quiet, "Thank you." It wasn't just gratitude, it was proof. Proof that when everything fell apart, I showed up. And now they were showing up for me. I shook off the memory as my phone lit up again. A text from a coworker upstairs. "They're in the boardroom. It's tense. They're saying your name over and over, quote." My heart thudded so hard I pressed a hand to my chest. Over and over. My name. Downstairs, people began whispering. The hum of speculation spread fast. I caught snippets. "Is this about Rachel?" I heard the client's furious. Meanwhile, Linda was pacing, her heels clicking like a metronome of dread. She pulled out her phone, typing furiously, probably scrambling, trying to patch holes in a dam that had already burst. And me? I sat perfectly still, because that's all I could do. Still, but alive with adrenaline, minutes passed. Too many, the kind that stretch into hours in your head, and then silence. A heavier silence than before. You could feel it spill from the top floor, like the air itself carried the weight of that call. Finally, my screen lit again. Another message from my coworker. CEO just said, "If Rachel goes, the deal goes." Linda's face, priceless. I had to cover my mouth to keep from gasping out loud. Do you get what that means? Not just that they wanted me, but that they made it binary, me or nothing, no middle ground. And in that second, I realized something. This wasn't just about my bonus anymore. It wasn't even about Linda's power trip. This was leverage. The kind of leverage you only get once in a career. I stared at my monitor, my reflection faint in the glass, and I whispered to myself, don't waste this. Because stakes like that, they're rare. They don't come wrapped in HR memos or performance reviews. They come when the people paying the bills put their foot down. And the best part? There was nothing Linda could do. Her charm, her rooftop galas, her forced networking, they meant nothing in that boardroom. Nothing against the raw fact that the client had made their line in the sand. So I sat there quiet, holding on to the moment. Have you ever waited outside a room where your entire reputation was being rewritten? That's where I was. And the craziest part? I wasn't scared anymore. For the first time, I felt power, real power. Because whether Linda admitted it or not, the decision had been made. By the time the executives walked out, their faces stiff, the whispers had already become certainty. Rachel stays, Rachel leads, Rachel matters. And me? I didn't need to say a word. The client had spoken for me, louder than I ever could. So I'll ask you, if someone stood up in the highest room of your company and said, no them, no deal, what would you do? Would you still doubt yourself? Or would you finally believe that all the late nights, all the invisible work, actually meant something? Because for me, that was the moment I knew. The story wasn't ending. It was just beginning. I still remember the walk to the boardroom like it was yesterday. My legs felt heavy, like I was dragging chains with every step, but at the same time, adrenaline pushed me forward. The hall was quiet, eerily quiet, except for the faint hum of the air conditioning and the soft clicks of my heels on the polished floor. Everyone knew something was about to happen. You could feel it in the air. When I reached the double glass doors, they were already cracked open. The room inside was tense. I could hear the muffled voices of the executives, deep and clipped, and Linda's sharp tone cutting through, trying to hold ground. Then my name floated out. Rachel. That one word, spoken by people who had the power to decide everything, froze me in place. I pushed the door gently and walked in. All eyes turned. The CEO sat at the head of the long mahogany table, his hands clasped together like he was weighing the fate of an entire empire. The CFO beside him scrolled through his tablet, but even his face looked grim. At the far end, Linda straightened in her chair, her lips tightening into a thin smile that didn't reach her eyes. The CEO's gaze landed on me. "Rachel," he said slowly, "take a seat." The chair squeaked as I pulled it back, the sound unnaturally loud in the silence. My palms were slick with sweat, but I kept them flat on the table, steady. Across from me, Linda crossed her arms, her nails tapping against the fabric of her blazer. The client's executive was on speakerphone. His voice filled the room, calm but ironclad. "As I've told you already, without Rachel, there's no deal. Period." The CEO didn't flinch. He leaned back, eyes narrowing just slightly as he studied me. "Is that correct?" "You're the one they insist on?" I nodded once. "Yes, sir." My voice didn't tremble this time. For a moment the room went still, and then Linda jumped in, her words sharp, fast, desperate. With all due respect, Rachel isn't suited for this level of visibility. She lacks presence in networking. She doesn't represent the company the way... Enough. The CEO's voice sliced through her sentence like a blade. The word echoed off the walls. Final. He turned to me again. Rachel, the client believes in you. That counts more than any gala, more than any rooftop event. We value results here, and right now you are the reason this deal stands. My chest swelled, but I stayed silent. I wanted to savor the words, to lock them away forever. The CFO finally looked up, adjusting his glasses. We've reviewed her performance metrics. They're exceptional. Frankly, beyond what we expected. If the client is willing to escalate to this level for her, then the matter is settled. Linda's face went pale. For the first time, I saw fear flicker behind her eyes. She tried to speak, but her words came out brittle. But... The CEO raised a hand. Linda, we've had complaints about your handling of this account repeatedly. This incident is the last straw. Her jaw dropped. She looked around the table, searching for an ally, but no one met her gaze. The CFO avoided her eyes. The other directors busied themselves with their notes. It was like watching the ground collapse beneath her. Finally, the CEO delivered the blow. Effective immediately, you're being reassigned. This account is now under Rachel's direct leadership. We expect you to support the transition professionally. The words hung in the air. My heart pounded so hard it was almost painful. Linda's face twisted, caught between disbelief and rage, but she forced a tight smile. Of course, she said, her voice strained. If that's what leadership believes is best... She stood, her chair screeching back, and left the room without another glance. The silence she left behind was deafening. And me? I sat there, still, every nerve in my body alive with relief, with empowerment, with vindication. This was it, the closure, the moment when all the quiet endurance, all the late nights, all the swallowing of unfair words finally meant something. The CEO leaned forward, his tone softer now. Rachel, you've proven your value beyond doubt. Take this moment, use it. We need people like you, steady, reliable, trusted. Quote. I nodded again, swallowing the lump in my throat. Thank you. It was all I could say, but those two words carried every ounce of gratitude and fire I felt inside. When I walked out of that boardroom, the eyes of my colleagues followed me. Some smiled, some whispered, some simply stared. But for the first time, I didn't feel invisible. For the first time, I wasn't just surviving the politics. I had risen above them. And you? Tell me. Have you ever had that moment where justice finally broke through? Where someone who tried to hold you down was forced to step aside and your worth stood undeniable? If you've ever had a boss like Linda, one who underestimated you, one who played games with your future, tell me in the comments, because this was the moment I learned that no matter how much they try to silence you, results speak louder than perception. And perception? It just shattered in that boardroom. The morning after the boardroom felt different. The sun came in harsh and clean through the windows, sharp angles across my desk like fresh lines on a map, new territory, new risk. My inbox said it out loud before anyone else did. Proposed expansion scope, urgent, I clicked. The client wanted more. Not a little more, a lot more. A new product line, a new region, and an accelerated timeline that made my calendar look like it was holding its breath. The number at the bottom of the email made my mouth go dry. If the pilot was a skyscraper, this expansion was the city around it. I read the scope twice and then a third time, pen tapping against the margin. Headcount requirements. Additional integration points. A regulatory review window that didn't care about anyone's sleep. The kind of plan you only greenlight if you're sure your partner won't blink. And that partner was me. I leaned back and stared at the ceiling, letting the weight settle. You know that feeling when victory slides into responsibility without asking? When applause fades and the real work steps forward? That was this, the quiet after the ovation when the lights stay on and someone hands you a blueprint as thick as a phone book. I opened a fresh notebook and titled the first page, Expansion, Non-Negotiables, underlined twice, then bullets. Client trust stays central. Timeline realism versus executive appetite. Risk visibility. No surprises, no heroics that rely on luck. Data integrity across all streams. Roles and ownership. In writing. Before noon, I had my first war room. Not the official kind with branded decks and pastries. The real kind. 4 people in a too-cold conference room, sleeves rolled up, laptops open, the smell of burnt coffee lingering like a dare. I brought in Kara from compliance. Fast brain, unflappable tone. I looped in Dev from integration. He speaks AP. I like it's his first language. And I pulled Mia from ops because she understands how things move when they actually have to move. We've got 6 weeks to make 2 years of work look easy, I said, and watched their faces in the reflection of the glass wall. So we won't pretend. We're going to make the risk visible and the plan boring. Dev laughed. Boring? Boring plans don't break, I said. Exciting plans explode. We started mapping. Whiteboard markers squeaked like stubborn doors, boxes for systems. Arrows for dependencies. Stars for places where people historically lied to themselves. Every time a line crossed, I asked, who owns this? Who signs off? Who panics if it slips? By 2 p.m., my phone buzzed. A number I recognized, the client's COO. We're thrilled, she said, breathless, like the idea itself had momentum. We want this live by quarter's end. I didn't flinch. We can do it, I said. If we lock scope by Friday and if approvals don't stall, call. Silence, then a soft laugh. You don't do fluff, do you? I do delivery. I hung up and wrote the first guardrail in my notebook. Scope creep kills trust. By late afternoon, the VP stopped by my doorway, one hand on the frame like he might not commit to entering. Big day, he said. You need anything? Yes, I said. Authority in writing. I'm not herding cats with a whisper. He blinked and nodded. I'll have legal draft a directive. Pattern interrupt. Let me ask you something. Have you ever learned the hard way that authority isn't real until it's written? Titles help. Emails help more. PDFs with signatures. That's oxygen. I headed back to the war room and passed legal in the hall. They were already carrying a template. For once, the corridor currents were with me. Doors opened. People said yes. It was like the building itself decided to move. We broke the build into 3 streams. Core expansion, the new product line and region launch. Data spine, the integrations and reconciliation layer that would make or break trust. Controls, compliance checkpoints, audit trails, the paper that keeps the paper clean. For each stream, we wrote 1 sentence at the top of a slide. If this fails, the project fails. Sometimes you need to say the scary part out loud so nobody can claim they didn't hear it. At 5, I called the client steering session. Cameras flickered on across time zones. London's gray light, Austin's golden hour, New York's neon dusk waiting its turn. The COO leaned close to her webcam like she could step through it. Rachel, she said, we want your cadence. Tell us how we march. I shared the screen. Simple grid. No fireworks, no gradients, just dates and promises. Here's the rule, I said. We don't celebrate deadlines. We celebrate decisions made on time. If we miss a decision, we move the deadline. If we miss both, we move people. The room went quiet. Then the COO nodded slowly. Understood. We set checkpoints. Every Tuesday and Friday, 30 minutes hard stop. We set escalation paths. Who gets the call if X breaks? Who approves the fix? Who eats the consequence? And we set a single source of truth. One dashboard. No back channel spreadsheets multiplying like rabbits in the shadows. After the call, I stared at my reflection in the black monitor for a beat. I could see the tired around my eyes, the determination in the jaw I get from my mother. Flashback. Years ago, first big expansion I ever touched, I was junior. No seat at the table. I watched a much louder manager rush a launch to make a quarterly headline. The confetti cannon went off. The platform crashed. We spent the next week stitching the brand back together like a torn dress 5 minutes before curtain. I promised myself that day, never confuse speed with control. Never trade stable for shiny. Back in the present, I wrote promise number 2 on the notebook margin. I will not let this project win at the expense of the relationship. By 7, the office thinned. The cleaning crew rolled in, their carts rattling like distant thunder. I was still there. The war room now a quiet landscape of dry erase scars and post-its stuck in neat lines. I sent one more email to the client. Here's tomorrow's agenda. If any blocker appears overnight, text me. I'll be up. Then I walked to the window. The city looked like a circuit board, all lit channels and pulsing intersections. Somewhere out there, 100 small decisions were happening that would crash into mine in the morning. I felt the weight and the privilege of it. My phone buzzed again. CFO. I want a 7 a.m. brief, he said. I'm not allergic to risk. I'm allergic to surprises. Then you'll like my plan, I said. It's aggressively unsurprising, he chuckled. Good answer. I went home, but the project followed. Not in a tormenting way, more like a sleeping tiger you keep on a short leash. I laid the notebook on the kitchen counter and wrote 3 names on a sticky note, people I'd need to protect if, when, the pressure turned ugly. Project success can burn through humans like they're fuel. I wouldn't let that happen this time, next morning. Gray sky, coffee strong. I was in before 7. The CFO was already there, jacket off, tie loosened like he respected the war we were fighting. I walked him through the plan. He stopped me twice. What happens if the regulator pushes back here? What if the data spine can't reconcile this edge case? We've staged buffers, I said, not days, decisions. We build 2 paths for every critical junction. Plan A with confidence, Plan B with dignity. He nodded. I hate that I like that line. At 9, we kicked off Sprint 1. The energy was clean, no chest thumping. Just grown-ups moving heavy furniture in perfect rhythm. Dev posted the first schema. Mia flagged a logistics assumption that would have killed week 3 if it hit another day. Kara rewrote a control in plainer English so the auditor wouldn't have to pretend to understand it. And me? I kept the pulse. Every hour I asked 2 questions. What did we learn? And who needs help? Not, are we on track? That question makes people lie. Midday, the VP popped in again. There's enthusiasm upstairs, he said. Also nerves, they want velocity. Velocity without friction fires the engine, I said. Velocity without brakes kills the driver. He stared at me for a beat and then smiled. I'm stealing that. By afternoon, the first risk surfaced. A small one, tiny even, but I treated it like a flare. The new region's banking window closed 30 minutes earlier than our model assumed. 30 minutes doesn't sound like much until your reconciliation job needs 31. We rethreaded the job. It cost us an hour to save a week. The room let out a breath nobody knew they were holding. Pattern interrupt. Think about this. How many disasters start as just 30 minutes? We ended day 1 with a ritual I learned from a mentor who never spoke loud but never missed. The 3. 3 truths the plan is built on, spoken out loud. Every day, trust beats theater. Decisions beat deadlines. Visibility beats bravado. Everyone repeated them. It felt corny for 2 seconds. Then it felt necessary. As people packed up, I stayed. I opened my inbox and saw a note from the client COO. Your cadence is already saving us time. Keep it. Just one line. Enough to refuel. I closed my eyes and let the day stream through me, fast but not frantic. And I realized something simple and strong. The expansion wasn't just a bigger project, it was a bigger vote. A vote that said, we choose work that works. So I'll ask you, when the room finally trusts you with the bigger thing, what do you guard first? Your ego or the relationship that got you there? For me, the answer is easy. Relationships build results. Results protect relationships. That loop is sacred. I packed my bag, the notebook on top, sticky notes tucked like tabs. Walking out, the office lights clicked into nighttime mode. Softer, quieter, almost kind. I caught my reflection in the glass. Tired eyes, steady shoulders, ready. The city air hit my face, cool and electric. Tomorrow would be harder, that was fine. Hard isn't the enemy, undefined is. And for once, nothing about this was undefined. If you're still with me, tell me this in the comments. When you've led something big, what rule kept you sane? I'd love to steal it for the morning stand-up. It started as a breeze, barely there, a shift in the air you can't name yet. People don't look at you differently. They look near you, past you, like their eyes found a new safe corner on the wall. By noon, the breeze had a shape. A sentence with blunt edges, carried in low voices like it was too hot to hold. She's only in that seat because the client likes her personally. I heard it first at the elevator bank. 2 analysts, whispering as the numbers ticked down. One said it softly, like an apology that wasn't one. The other snorted, "Won't last." The doors opened and they slipped inside. I stayed where I was, letting the doors close again so I wouldn't have to share the ride with them. Back at my desk, the war room still smelled like dry erase ink and stale coffee, a comfort I hadn't expected. I set my notebook down and stared at the whiteboard. Plans, dependencies, names, all the unglamorous proof of work. And yet, the rumor made paper feel like smoke. Have you ever done everything right, only to watch a sentence try to erase it in 5 seconds? The first Slack message came from a friend in marketing. Heads up, someone's saying you bypassed process to cozy up to the client. Cozy. The word made my skin prickle. That's how rumors work. They don't accuse you of failure. They accuse you of being less principled, less deserving. I typed back, "Thanks, I'll keep moving." Then I did something I'd learned to do when the ground starts to tilt. I wrote the rumor down, out loud, on paper. Narrative. Rachel's position is personal, not earned. And under it, a column labeled counterfactuals. Executive directive in writing. Client escalation on record. Performance metrics signed off by CFO. War room cadence adopted by client steering, not for anyone else, for me. You don't fight fog with fists. You fight it with floorboards at 2 p.m. Linda reappeared in a meeting I hadn't expected her to join. She slipped in quietly and took a seat in the back, lips neutral, eyes bright with the kind of curiosity that isn't kind. When the VP asked for status, I shared our checkpoints, blockers, mitigation paths, clear, calm, no extra verbs. "Impressive," Linda said, with a smile that swooped like a hawk. Of course, some of this momentum is because the client is unusually attached to Rachel. That level of affection can distort governance. We should be mindful affection. She picked the word like a weapon. The room shifted, not loud, just subtle. A pen stopped tapping, a throat cleared. The VP didn't respond. He moved to the next agenda item like he hadn't heard the tripwire. But tripwires don't need acknowledgement to sting. After the meeting, Linda floated by my chair, airy as perfume. "You know how it is," she murmured, "when clients get fixated. It isn't fair to you either. So much pressure." I looked up. "Pressure doesn't scare me," I said. "Fiction does. Her smile didn't move, but her eyes cooled. "Don't be touchy," she whispered. "Everyone's just talking. That's the trick, isn't it? Rumors never have owners. They have hosts." By late afternoon, the narrative had matured like bruised fruit. It wasn't just personal, it was political. The story said I'd engineered the escalation, that I'd cornered the client into calling the CEO, that I'd made this bigger than it needed to be to secure my own rise. A neat loop. Either I was weak and carried by favoritism, or I was manipulative and carried by scheming. Pick your poison. Either way, my merit didn't count. I went back to the war room. Dev was there, typing with that flat focus that makes noise disappear. Mia was lining up a logistics dependency with colored tabs. Kara was on a call with legal, rewriting a clause so it would survive daylight. People doing the work. People who didn't care about the rumor because the rumor wouldn't reconcile ledger lines or move the banking window. "Everything okay?" Mia asked, not looking up. "Just weather," I said. "We'll carry on." We carried on. But carrying on and carrying alone aren't the same thing. Rumors isolate. They turn a crowd into an observation deck where you're on the floor under glass. Around 5, my phone buzzed. A number I knew too well. Linda's old lieutenant. Someone who always sounded helpful and always delivered knives wrapped in napkins. "Quick question," he said, voice warm. "Given your, closeness with the client, are we adjusting standard sign-offs?" "Saves time, right?" "Standard sign-offs are staying," I said. "That's what saves time." "Of course," he replied, "just trying to keep the gears greased." Wouldn't want anyone to think governance is flexible. He wanted me to argue, to slip, to sound defensive so he could repeat it later. I didn't give him the line. "Appreciate the concern," I said, and hung up. I wrote another note. "Do not let rumor set your posture. Have you ever noticed how a lie tries to choreograph you? Make you flail so it can point and say, 'See?'" I stepped away from my desk and took the long loop around the floor. Sometimes motion is medicine. The windows washed the room in late light. The city shimmered like it had secrets and didn't care if you liked them. I passed clusters of people. Some met my eyes and smiled, soft and real. Some looked busy at empty screens. Some stared the way people stare at headlines they haven't read yet. When I got back, there was an email from the CFO. "Strong progress notes, keep the cadence. I'll attend Friday's checkpoint. No emojis, no fluff. Exactly the weight I needed." I forwarded it to the team with 2 words. "Well noted, not as a flex, as a stake in the ground." Near 7, I caught Linda in the corridor. She wasn't expecting me. For a beat, we both stopped, mirror still. She tilted her head, concern performing across her face like practiced theater. "Rough few days, she said. "Ask me how I know." "Clients adore you until they don't. Best to spread your risk. Build relationships internally." "I am," I said. "I'm building them with results." Her smile sharpened. "Results are fickle. Perception endures." I held her gaze. "Perception bends." She stepped closer, not easily. "Easily, no," I said. "But inevitably." She left with a laugh that sounded like a door clicking shut. Back at my desk, I opened the folder I'd made months ago, Perception versus Reality, and added the day's anchors, the CFO's note, the updated dashboard, the minutes from our checkpoint where decisions were made on schedule, on record. It felt small against the shapelessness of gossip, but small anchors hold big ships in storms. Night crept in. The office thinned. The cleaning crew murmured past, their carts humming like kind machines. I sat in the quiet and thought about every woman I've watched walk this gauntlet. The whisper campaign that asks them to apologize for gravity, be less noticeable, be less decisive, be less chosen. So I did what I wish someone had told 25-year-old me. I named the tactic out loud. Not to give it power, to take it back. "This is an attribution attack," I wrote on a sticky note. "It moves credit from competence to charm, from process to proximity." Below it, counter, over-communicate process, publish decisions, invite scrutiny. The next morning, I sent the cleanest status note of my life. 6 bullets, 3 decisions, 2 risks, 1 ask. I CC'd the people who would need to defend this project when it wasn't fashionable, no adjectives, just nouns that paid rent. By lunch, the wind had changed a degree. Not much, enough. The rumor didn't die. It rarely does. But it got tired. Because rumors feed on silence and contradiction, we gave it neither. We gave it boring truth every 4 hours on a schedule that didn't blink. Still, I'm not going to lie to you. It stung. Words sting. Especially the ones that pretend to be concern. Especially the ones that sound like they're saving you from yourself. I went to the stairwell and let the concrete cool the heat in my face. 10 breaths. Eyes closed. The kind of reset you don't get applause for. When I came back, Dev had pushed the first end-to-end test through the data spine. It reconciled. Mia had locked the first vendor timeline with a clause I loved. Late means loud. Kara had gotten sign-off from compliance in a single-pass review. She'd rewritten the controls so clean the auditor had nothing left to perform. I messaged the client COO. 3 green lights. Friday checkpoint still on. No changes to governance. She answered in under a minute. Perfect. Keep your tempo. We're following you. I stared at that line. We're following you. That's what terrified the rumor most. Not that I had power, that I had direction. And here's the piece I want to say directly to you. Pattern interrupt, if you will. Have you ever watched a rumor try to swap cause and effect? Pretend that trust came first and work came second? As if loyalty materialized from compliments instead of competence. It's a neat trick. It just isn't true. I ended the day with the same ritual as every day that week. I wrote the 3 on the corner of the whiteboard and made the team say them out loud. Trust beats theater. Decisions beat deadlines. Visibility beats bravado. We laughed at ourselves, then we meant it. On my way out, I passed Linda in the lobby. She stood with 2 directors, voice low, eyebrows arched in that delicate shape people use when they're lodging doubt without owning it. One of the directors looked over her shoulder and saw me. He didn't look away. He lifted a hand in a small wave, then stepped forward. Friday 9 a.m., he said to me. I'll be there. Linda's smile didn't falter, but it didn't spread either. I stepped into the evening, city air bright with sirens and street food and the million tiny negotiations that make up a Tuesday. I felt tired, sure, but I also felt steady. That's what rumors underestimate. They think you'll crumble. They don't plan on you getting clearer. Tell me this, have you ever had to outlast a whisper campaign? What one habit kept you anchored when the noise got loud? Drop it in the comments. Someone on this channel needs that habit tonight. It landed in my inbox at 6:41 a.m. Too early for drama, too on time for trouble. Subject line, addendum, personal accountability clause. I read it once, then again. My coffee went cold in my hand. The clause was short, clinical, and it carried a knife under the lab coat. If anything in the expansion slipped, timeline, targets, regulatory windows, the client wanted me personally to guarantee the performance with a financial backstop, me, not the firm, not the contract entity, my name. Have you ever felt the floor tilt just enough to make everything on the table slide an inch? That was this email. A small nudge with catastrophic potential. I forwarded it to legal, to the CFO, to the VP. Then I stared out the window at a city that didn't care about my inbox. Yellow cabs stitched morning light into lines. Somewhere, a baker pulled trays from an oven. Somewhere, a jogger checked their pulse. And here, at my desk, a number waited to be stapled to my name. At 7:15, the CFO slid into the war room, jacket already off. He didn't sit. He read the clause standing, the way people read fire alarms. "No," he said. "Agreed," I said. He rubbed his forehead. "They've moved beyond governance. They're asking you to be the insurance policy." "It's leverage," I said. "They smell risk. They want muscle memory to get scared." He glanced up. "Are you scared?" I was. "In the way you're scared when the weather warns you and you respect it." "But I didn't say that. I'm awake," I said. We brought in legal compliance, ops. The table filled with laptops, cords, highlighters. The addendum glowed on the screen. Polite paragraphs with sharp edges, personal indemnity, liquidated damages, negligence presumed on failure to meet milestones absent force majeure. If you've never read language like that tied to your own name, it feels like standing in front of a camera that never blinks. Pattern interrupt. Tell me honestly, would you sign your mortgage on someone else's schedule? Would you stake your savings on other people's approvals arriving on time? That's what they were asking. By 8:05, the VP arrived. He skimmed, exhaled through his nose, and said, "They're bluffing." I shook my head. Maybe, maybe not. Either way, it's a tell. They don't trust institutional guardrails, they trust people. Or at least, they want the illusion of one person to blame, he asked. "Because I'm visible," I said. "Because I answer the phone." The room went quiet. Truth can be rude like that. We set up a call with the client's COO and their counsel, cameras on. Faces tight, not hostile, just taut with urgency. The COO opened. "Rachel, your cadence has been strong. We have pressure on our end. If this slips, the board won't accept vendor delay as an excuse. They want assurance. Personal accountability does that." "Personal accountability," I repeated, slower. "Or personal liability." "Semantics," their counsel said. "Law," I said. A pause. Then the COO softened her tone. "We're not trying to hang you out to dry. We're trying to match the weight of this project." I nodded once. "Then let's talk about weight." I shared my screen. No decks, 1 page, 3 columns. Column 1, what we control, build order, decision cadences, testing standards, reconciliation windows. Column 2, what you control, executive approvals, data availability, region-specific sign-offs. Column 3, what nobody controls, regulator bandwidth, vendor outages, unplanned banking cutoffs, weather. I let the columns sit there, black text on white, dull as a ledger, and then I asked the only question that mattered. If I'm personally liable, am I personally empowered to control column 2 and column 3? Silence. Can I sign your approvals when your director is on a flight? I asked. Can I instruct your regulator to prioritize our file? Can I command the weather? Their counsel didn't smile. Be serious. I am, I said. Liability without control is theater. Theater doesn't deliver. We need an assurance that reflects reality, not optics. The COO folded her hands. What if we narrowed it? Make you accountable only for the parts your team touches. That's what the contract already does, I said. It's called performance obligations. They're scoped, testable, auditable. You want something else? You want a scapegoat. The word was heavier than I expected once it was out, but truth, again, is rude. The COO took a breath. Understand our position. Our board's tolerance is gone. They're afraid of headline risk. We can't go back to them with just Rachel runs a tight ship. Then don't, I said. Go back with proof. Give them decisions on time, tests that pass, controls that bind. Give them visibility. It beats bravado. I felt the room tilt toward me a degree, not a lot, enough to notice. But the clause didn't die there. Clauses like that are like gum on a shoe. You don't scrape it off with one swipe. After the call, they sent a revised version, smaller numbers, softer verbs, same trap. Personal escrow, purely as a gesture. a gesture with teeth. I pushed away from the table, walked to the window, and let the glass cool my forehead. Flashback. My first year out of school, sitting in a cheap chair while a senior manager leaned over my desk and said, "Be a team player, put your name on it." He meant a risk that wasn't mine. I said yes back then. I slept badly for a month. I don't say yes to ghosts anymore. At noon we held an internal huddle. The CFO spoke first. "Non-starter," he said. "If we even consider this, we set a precedent that guts our ability to shield staff. Our insurance, our structure, gone." Legal nodded. "No personal guarantees ever. That's why contracts have parties." The VP looked at me. "How hard do you want to push?" "Hard," I said, "but clean, no theatrics. We show them a safer path to the same outcome." He raised an eyebrow. "You have one?" I did. "Or at least, a shape of one." But this was segment 9, and the shape lived just out of frame. First, I called the team. "Freeze nothing," I said. "We keep building. Momentum is proof." Then I drafted the calmest email of my life. Subject, Assurance Framework, Proposal. In the body, 3 paragraphs, 1 line per paragraph that mattered. We won't accept personal liability, and we won't pretend that helps delivery. We will provide assurance that tracks reality, staged risk controls, escrow for deliverables, not people, automatic escalations that move decisions instead of blame. You will get certainty without spectacle. I showed it to the CFO. He said, "Add that we'll publish a decision clock. Missed decisions trigger governance, not guilt." I smiled. Stealing that, we hit send. Then the waiting. The long, ugly waiting where your brain wants to sprint through every worst-case scenario. What if they walk? What if the rumor mill wins the day by dinner? What if I'm the cautionary tale whispered to new hires? You don't control those thoughts. You just choose not to feed them. To keep my hands from shaking, I walked the floor. The war room was alive. Dev stood over a laptop with another engineer, tracing a data path with his finger like he was mapping a river. Mia negotiated a delivery timing with a vendor using a voice that made "no" sound like an invitation to grow up. Kara wrote a pre-mortem for an audit that hadn't happened yet and probably wouldn't, but if it did, it would find us boringly prepared. I stood there and felt something like pride that didn't need witnesses. At 3:03, my phone buzzed. "Call in 5," the COO texted. "Ready," I replied. We clicked into the bridge. First her, then counsel, then 2 bored observers who kept their cameras off but their presence loud with silence. She spoke first. "Rachel, we reviewed your note." "Your points about control are fair, thank you," I said. "We still need assurance," she said. "Our board needs to see consequence attached to failure." I nodded. "I'll show you consequence that changes behavior, not names on a page." I laid out the shape, risk staged like a staircase, not a cliff. Money tied to milestones, not myths. Escalations that move decisions by design, not panic. Controls that prove, not just promise, that what we say we built is what we built. Not personal liability, real accountability. Her counsel tried one more time. "And if those controls fail?" "Then the contract party pays," I said. "The way contracts work. And we design. So failing one control doesn't kill the patient." Silence. The good kind this time. The kind where people are taking off their armor and measuring the ground. "Give us 12 hours, she said. "We'll come back." After the call, the room exhaled. The VP leaned against the doorframe. "You held the line?" "I held the reality," I said. "The line comes with it." He nodded, but he stayed where he was, like he knew the credits hadn't rolled. "You okay?" I considered. "Ask me when they answer." He smirked. Fair. Evening slid in. The building thinned to a whisper. I wrote our checkpoint note, the one I promised every Tuesday and Friday, and sent it on time because on time is a language people trust. Then I put my head on my folded arms for 30 seconds and let my brain go dark, just long enough to reset. When I sat up, the city outside was night. Windows flickered on and off like the skyline was blinking. I thought about cost. Not the numbers we charge, but the kind you don't invoice. Sleep, skin, years. Every big choice takes a bite. You just try to make it bite where you can heal. My phone buzzed again. Not the COO this time. A message from someone on her team. Someone I'd never met in person, who had attended every checkpoint quietly. For what it's worth, the message said, don't sign anything with your name on it. Good work shouldn't cost you your house. I stared at the words. Then I typed back, agreed. I packed my bag, slid the notebook in with the sticky notes peeking like bright flags, and headed for the elevator. The doors opened, the car empty. I stepped in and caught my reflection in the steel, tired, sure, but steady. Not brave in a movie way, brave in a keep showing up way. Before the doors closed, a hand shot in, the sensor pinged. Linda stepped inside. We stood side by side, facing forward, our faces floating ghost-like in the brushed metal. Long day, she said lightly. Long, I said. I heard the client wants your signature on a guarantee, she added, as if mentioning the weather. Tough spot. It's clear, I said. I won't sign. Her smile didn't move. Sometimes sacrifice signals leadership. Sometimes boundaries do, I said. She turned her head, just enough for me to see the glint in her eyes. Careful. If they wanted you badly enough to call our CEO, they might want you badly enough to replace you if you say no. I met my own eyes in the reflection, not hers. If yes costs my future, it isn't leadership, it's theater. The elevator opened. She stepped out without a word. The doors closed on the smell of her perfume. In the quiet box of mirrored steel, I let myself feel it fully for the first time that day. The fear. Not the kind that makes you run. The kind that makes you pick your ground carefully because you plan to stand here. So let me ask you, because I know some of you have been here. Would you sign your name to make other people sleep better? Would you trade your roof to calm someone else's board? What kept you from saying yes when yes sounded like the easy way out? Drop it in the comments. Someone needs your line in the sand tonight. I slept with a pen on the nightstand. Not because I expected poetry, because I expected clarity to show up rudely at 3 a.m. It did. I woke to the word shared sitting in my head like a lit switch. Not softer than liability, smarter. If risk was going to sit in the room, it had to sit in everyone's chair. At 6:10, I was in the war room. The windows wore a thin gray, the kind of light that makes you honest. I opened my notebook to a fresh page and wrote a sentence I could defend to anyone. Accountability is strongest when it is visible, distributed, and dated. Under it, I sketched the spine. 1. A decision clock. Not a dashboard with confetti, a clock. Every critical decision gets a due time stamped in red. Miss it? The clock doesn't shame, it escalates automatically to the person who can actually move the thing. No more polite waiting, no more hoping. 2. Dual key milestones. Each milestone has 2 keys, ours and the client's. Build complete, that's our key. Data ready and approved, that's theirs. The gate opens only when both turn. If one key is late, the timeline moves in daylight, not in rumor. 3. Escrow for deliverables, not people. A small pool tied to artifacts, code, tests, reconciliations, released on acceptance, not on smiles. Money follows proof, not proximity. 4. A joint risk ledger, one list. No private spreadsheets. Each risk carries an owner on both sides and a date. If it slips, it shows. If it resolves, it celebrates itself by disappearing. 5. The audit trail in plain English. Controls anyone can read without pretending. If X breaks, we do Y in Z minutes. No Latin, no theater. I wrote them big, then smaller, refining verbs until they couldn't wiggle. I could hear Dev's keyboard from the hall before he even walked in. He set his laptop down, hair still damp from the shower. "We building a church or a bridge?" he asked. "Both," I said. "A bridge you can pray on?" Mia followed with a stack of vendor notes like a deck of uncooperative cards. Kara slid in, eyes awake and warm. She read the 5 lines and nodded slowly. "This is boring," she said. "Intentionally," I said. "Boring wins." At 8 o'clock, the CFO arrived. He read standing, hands in pockets, the way you watch weather. "This exposes nothing we can't defend," he said. "Good." Then, almost to himself, "This is how you move weight without hurting the floor." The VP leaned in the doorway, arms crossed. "You think they'll bite?" "They don't have to bite," I said. "They only have to breathe. This gives them air." We sent the packet to the client at 8:27, no adjectives, 5 pages, each with 1 rule and 1 picture. I added a cover line that felt like the truth and a dare. Certainty without scapegoats. At 9:02, the COO replied, "Give us 2 hours. Bring your team at 11. The war room turned quiet in that way only teams know. Noise gone, focus loud. Dev prepped the milestone map with the dual keys blinking like lighthouses. Mia marked dependencies we'd kept invisible on purpose until now. This was the moment to show the wiring. Kara drafted the plain English controls and made them read like seatbelt instructions. Obvious, calm, serious. At 10:57, we walked to the big room. Not the boardroom with mahogany and intimidation. This one had glass, air, a long table that didn't feel like a trap. Screens glowed. Our side on the left, their side on the right. The COO was already there, posture straight but not defensive. Counsel sat 1 chair back, as lawyers do when they plan to speak through the client's eyes. "Rachel," the COO said, and for once my name didn't feel like a test. "Walk us through it." I clicked to the first slide, the clock. A red ring around today's 3 decisions. "Time is the only honest currency," I said. "This clock pays in escalations, not in guilt." "Who owns the clock?" Counsel asked. "Neither of us," I said. "Both of us." The system escalates. People respond. Slide 2, the dual keys. I held my breath and waited for the pushback. It came fast. "What happens if we've turned our key and you haven't?" the COO asked. "We move," I said. "We owe you a date and a reason in writing. If we miss both, the escrow pauses. If we miss again, the steering committee can reassign the work. That's consequence without panic." "And if we've failed to turn ours?" she asked. "We move the date," I said. Out loud, no midnight heroics, no secret guilt. The project breathes. It doesn't fake oxygen. Slide 3, escrow. Counsel leaned forward. "Who holds it?" "Third party," Kara said. "Release on artifact acceptance." "If an artifact fails, the funds wait, not wander," he asked. "Small enough not to be ransom," the CFO said, voice flat. "Big enough to matter? This isn't a bet, it's posture." Slide 4, joint risk ledger. Dev pulled it up live, rows, owners, time stamps, no scroll, no drama. "We open this every checkpoint," he said. "Add 3 things, retire 2. If it doesn't move, it becomes governance." "And the controls?" the COO asked. Kara slid a 1-pager to the center of the table. "We wrote them so your board won't need a translator." She read the first aloud. "If reconciliation fails at 4 p.m., rerun at 4:05 with the Delta-only job. If it fails twice, page ops and compliance concurrently and freeze posting. Resume only when both clear." She looked up. "The point isn't poetry, it's predictability. Silence." Then the COO's mouth tugged, almost a smile. "I can sell this." Counsel cleared his throat. "We had precedent in mind with the personal clause." "You had optics in mind," I said, softer than I felt. This is precedent. This is something you'll want to use again because it works, not because it punishes. He sat back. The COO exhaled. We accept the framework. Draft it. My body didn't cheer. It released. Like someone had been standing on my chest and finally stepped aside. Pattern interrupt. Have you ever felt relief arrive without fireworks? It's not a shout. It's a weight leaving with good manners we broke to right. Kara and their council took the language. Dev and Mia defined the first week of dual key milestones, so there'd be no gap for anxiety to crawl through. The CFO handled the escrow numbers with the elegance of a man who hates surprises and loves math. The VP did what good VPs do when they trust their teams. He stayed available and out of the way. At 2:40, we reconvened. Red lines on the screen, no games, 3 commas, 1 verb, a number tucked a hair lower to match reality. By 3:05, we were done. The COO leaned toward her camera for the folks dialing in. We move forward under shared accountability. No personal guarantees, she said. We protect outcomes with structure. Then she looked at me. Thank you for holding the line and giving us a better one. I nodded. My voice didn't trust itself yet. Back in the hallway, the noise of the office came back like a soundtrack turning up. Printers, distant laughter, wheels of a cart, the building remembering how to breathe. The VP clapped my shoulder. That was leadership, he said. No, I said. That was literacy. He raised an eyebrow. I shrugged. Reading the problem out loud until it stops lying. I walked to the window. The city had brightened under a blunt sun, every pane of glass suddenly honest. I let myself think about Linda for 1 second, and exactly one. Would she twist this? Try to seed? See? She couldn't carry the risk? Maybe, but rumors die when they're bored, and boredom was now our operating system. Flashback, quick and kind, 25-year-old me at a cheap desk saying yes to the wrong weight because I thought grit meant taking every punch. 35-year-old me now saying yes to the right framework because grit is sometimes a boundary with a date on it. We held the Friday checkpoint on time, cameras on. The clock ticked in the corner like a metronome we chose. 3 decisions made on schedule. 1 risk retired, 2 added, none ignored. The dual keys turned on the first milestone, ours and theirs, clicks that sounded small and felt enormous. The COO's message arrived after. This is the first time in months the board hasn't asked for a side call. Keep going. I read it once and then read it to the team. Because wins should touch more than one throat. Dev grinned. Mia sighed the kind of sigh that pays a debt you didn't invoice. Kara underlined a clause like it was a psalm. I went back to my desk and opened the folder I'd kept since the beginning, Perception versus Reality, and I added 1 more page. The signed framework, the clock screenshot, the dual key record with 2 green checks. Not to gloat, to remember. Because on quiet days, you forget what it took to make the quiet. 1 more thing happened before the week closed. The CFO stopped by, hands in pockets again. Comp review is next month, he said, casual like small talk. I asked HR to revisit your bonus decision retroactively. His eyes held mine. Perception has caught up. I smiled without showing teeth. Appreciated, I said. But inside, I let the sentence land where it belonged. Not as a gift, as gravity. I packed up late, the war room now just a room again, markers capped like closed chapters. On the way to the elevator, I passed a bulletin board we all ignored, the kind with corporate posters about values you don't feel unless someone loses them. I stopped and wrote a small note on a blank post-it, stuck it to the corner. Trust beats theater. Decisions beat deadlines. Visibility beats bravado. I didn't sign it. It didn't need my name to be true. Outside the city breathed me in. Streetlight on steel, steam on asphalt. A bus hissed. A kid laughed into a phone. Somewhere, someone made a promise they'd try to keep. I walked and felt, not triumphant, settled, like a table had finally stopped wobbling because someone took a minute to level the leg. So let me ask you, when you can't control the weather, what do you build? A better umbrella, or a story about how you never get wet? If this landed with you, tell me your version in the comments. One line, one rule that kept you upright when the room tilted. Someone's reading Who Needs Your Sentence tonight.